Good morning. I have a question for you. What would you do with your life if you didn't have to sleep? What if there was some sort of pill you could take to where you didn't have to go to bed? You could just stay awake for as many days as you wanted to. Well, I think about this all the time. I think sleep takes up all of my life. I love sleeping. I sleep like freaking 10 hours a day, and I want to change that. But after looking into it, I found some really creepy things. Actually, a long time ago, they tested the theory that what would happen to you if you didn't get any sleep for an extended period of time. I bring you the Russian sleep experiment. And no, this is not some top 5 video, this is not some 3 a.m. challenge. This is an experiment that went horribly wrong. There's a lot of different stories about this, a lot of different theories about this, but after doing a lot of research, here's one of the craziest things I have learned on the internet. So with that being said, hopefully you're in for another spooky video. And if you don't like spooky videos and you'd rather have crazy content, then Colby and I are about to release another 25 by 25 video on our main channel, so go subscribe to that one. But here we go. Spooky vibes! Yeah. A lot of people don't like sleeping. Well, everyone likes sleeping, but they feel like they waste a lot of time on it. If I were to give it a number, I feel like a lot of people waste like a third of their life sleeping. It sucks. So one day, specifically late 1940s, around the time of World War II, so the Soviets, their researchers started doing some experiments with political prisoners that they have deemed enemies of the state. They're like, hey, these guys are never gonna get out of captivity, so let's do some human experimentes on them. I think that's Spanish for experiments. So their hypothesis, the researchers were like, can we keep 5 prisoners awake for multiple days at a time? And what happens if we were to make 5 people stay awake for 15 days? Now why? Why would anybody want to be awake for 15 days? I mean, after like 12 hours, I'm ready to hit the snooze. But the Soviet Union obviously was in the middle of the war at this time, and they were just trying to find different ways to keep their soldiers alert and awake more than the opposite side. The Soviets just wanted some sort of drug to make their soldiers do better and last longer. I feel like they have a drug for that. Anyway, so they...
Cam, I'm the owner of Not That Cool. I would describe Depop as a platform that's easy.
Americans and the British had their like doses of weird drugs, and Germans actually had this weird methamphetamine type of drug that they were giving their soldiers, and so the Soviets just wanted something different. So let's start the story. So there were these 5 prisoners sealed in this environment with this gas-like chamber. Now in order to monitor that these people were alive, the oxygen levels were monitored, there was a microphone, you could kind of see through this like thick window. Again, they wanted to keep them entrapped. This is back when they didn't have CCTV. Now, if the prisoners just had this gas, it was considered to be toxic, but mixed in with oxygen, they could survive. The chamber had like books, cots to sit in, they had enough running water and food to last 5 people a full month. But here was the goal. The researchers wanted to keep these prisoners alive for 15 days. So they promised that any of the captures that were able to last longer than 30 days, they would be freed and let go. Obviously, these prisoners of war did not think they were ever gonna get out, so hey, sounds like a pretty good deal. What they didn't know is the Soviets were lying and no one was ever gonna get out of there. First one was like a freaking sleepover, second day was chilling, third day, nobody did anything. Fourth day, things were starting to go downhill. The prisoners start talking amongst themselves about the horrors they've experienced in war, all the traumas, their nightmares, everything of like how they ended up in this position where they were now. And by the end of day 5, they were turning towards themselves, talking to themselves, kind of beginning signs of psychosis, and they ended up turning on each other. So these prisoners began to whisper into the microphones, and they would tell secrets and throw other prisoners under the bus because for some reason they thought that if they were to give secrets about their comrades, then they would earn some sort of trust with the researchers and maybe, you know, get in and become friends with everybody. Is this like panic or is this the gas? Like, what's going on? Here's where things get super weird. Day 9. There's one of the subjects that is running back and forth up and down this chamber, screaming at the top of their lungs for 3+ hours. Yeah, no, not like 5 minutes, hours. This person just keeps screaming and then eventually screams for such a long time that that subject's vocal cords bursted. Sounded like a freaking dead squirrel. At this point, you would assume that all the other people in that same chamber, because it's kind of a small chamber, would be looking at them very weird or like, yo, trying to calm them down. No, all the other prisoners in there didn't even notice. It completely to themselves. They were, whispering to each other, silently away from everything that was happening. They didn't even pay attention to this guy who's screaming at the top of their lungs. What? After all this screaming, a second subject starts screaming. By the end of the day, everyone's screaming in a big panic, and then boom, everyone's like, vocal cords are out, it's all good. But it leads to a silence longer than they expected. 3 more days go by. The prisoners didn't make a single sound. This was to the point where the researchers were thinking that the microphones have stopped working or something, because they genuinely couldn't hear anything. But they were checking the oxygen levels, and it did indicate that all 5 people were still alive. Day 14, very close to the time that the researchers wanted to get. Again, remember, these guys wanted to keep people alive for 15 days. Nothing's happening, let's stir up the penguins. They probably didn't say that. What they did do is something they promised themselves they wouldn't do, which would be to talk to them through their side of the microphone and encourage the prisoners to do something. They used the intercom to talk into the chamber and said, "Hey guys, we're going to open the door to check if the microphones are working. If you guys all lie flat on the ground, then we will not shoot you. And if you comply, then they would free one of the prisoners." Obviously, again, liars! But after a few moments of silence, this is what they said, and it literally brought me chills. They heard one of the subjects, who hadn't talked in 48 hours, turn around to them and say, "We no longer wish to be freed." What, dude? I would be like shitting bricks, walking out of there. That guy is a freaking demon. Watch out.
Let me guess. It's an axe.
Nope.
2 axes.
It's
The researchers were so confused they didn't open the door or do anything. We gonna chill and we gonna write down on our little notepad that he was a creep. We're gonna move on. So here it is, day 15. It's what the researchers have been waiting for. They were like, all right, cool. So let's see what happened to these prisoners. It's again, these guys are creeping. It's we're trying to just see if they're awake for 15 days. They've basically done it. So what they did is they opened up the gas chamber and filled it with fresh air and got rid of all the weird stimulation gas. And immediately they received tons of objections from these prisoners. 3 voices immediately started screaming out, "Please," and they begged for this gas. They're like, "Oh, give me the gas." I'm sure they sounded just like that. The scientists went inside and they realized that only 4 of the 5 were alive. So yeah, over the last couple days, one of the prisoners has just passed away. And then they looked over to the corner where all the food was, and the last 5 days worth of food hadn't been touched. What are these guys on? They're not eating, and one of them has died. But that was just the beginning. This is where it gets insanely creepy. Almost all of the subjects were really badly wounded. Torn off skin, muscles torn off, bleeding everywhere. Even some of their chests were kind of ripped in half and stuff like that. It was a horrific sight, blood everywhere. It looked like a crime scene. What was really weird is that the researchers, upon looking into it further, realized that all these wounds were self-inflicted, meaning that these prisoners were not attacking each other, they were attacking themselves. All the alive subjects were having some sort of weird exposing of vital organs somewhere, and there was blood basically everywhere. Out of the one prisoner that had died, there was chunks of meat from their thighs and neck, bite marks basically, that were taken out of this dead prisoner and shoved down the main drain, basically making it a pool of blood in there. So the soldiers wanted to extract them and do tests on them. So they're, hey, get out of here, get out of here. They're trying to get them out, but they put up a crazy struggle. These people, they did not want to leave. They really wanted this gas, and they were just fighting back. The doctors ended up having to come in there with the soldiers and inject these guys with massive amounts of morphine to be able to get these guys to be sedated. It was unhuman almost. One source says that during this procedure, one of them had their spleen ruptured while trying to fight back and ended up bleeding out immediately and dying. Another one just would not take the morphine, so he had to be injected with 10 times the human dose to be able to like finally pass out. Even after the subjects were placed on like hospital beds and taken out of there, all they were screaming is more, 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 I want the gas again. People are like, what? Are they like seriously like this addicted? It's crazy. While this was happening, one of the men overcame the morphine and just started ripping out of his restraints like unhumanly strength. These restraints were leather and he was able to tear past them. But between all the bleeding and the morphine, all this like crazy drug, staying awake for 15 days, this guy had a heart attack and died. Another one of the subjects was so badly injured that he had to go through surgery. Yet, no matter what happened, this guy refused to get an anesthetic. So basically he did not want to be put under, he didn't want a painkiller. And finally one of the nurses was just like, hey, what if we just try to have this surgery and repair him without an anesthetic while he's still conscious? And all this guy did was turn and start grinning. Like this guy was mad. Like these people were being like turned insane. So one account says that the nurse claimed that throughout the surgery, all the man was doing was smiling. He didn't complain. Like this guy's getting cut open and like stitched back together, and yet all he's doing is smiling? Like what? After the surgery was all said and done, he wasn't speaking, but they gave him a pen and paper, and all he wrote was, keep cutting. How fucking creepy is that? So the doctor finally asked all these patients like, yo, why do you want this gas so much? It's just like this experimental gas. And they said, because I need to stay awake.
Escape to the world of anime with the Funimation app in both subs and dubs.
Awake. For some reason, these subjects had become obsessed with staying awake and breathing in this gas over this 15-day period. If they want it so badly, why don't we just put them back in? Like maybe they're going through some crazy withdrawal, but maybe if we give them back the gas, put them back in the chamber, they'll be okay. And so they did. So these two people were restrained and they like put him back into the chamber and all that stuff. And as soon as they got back into the gas, one of the subjects like immediately flatlined, like boom, heart not beating, and then bang, started back up. And I was like, what's going on? Happened again. This guy is basically going brain dead and then becoming back alive, all because he's like having this weird withdrawal like symptom thing from the gas. And then boom, he flatlined one last time and completely died. There's only one subject left, and one of the researchers just goes completely crazy, pulls out a gun, walks up to the man and was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I am not going to be stuck here with you things anymore. What are you? I must know. And the first time I heard this, like, there became like tears in my eyes are starting to get red too because of how much this scared me. This is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard in my life. So the last remaining subject looked up at him and said,
Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be freed with every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every single night. We are what you sedate into silence when you go into that nocturnal haven.
The researcher just like was taken aback again, like almost dumbfounded, and without another thought, just pointed up and shot the last remaining subject in the chest and ran. The last subject died. So what I learned through all this is like maybe I could just sleep, you know, like it doesn't really matter. Like I'm cool with getting 8 hours of sleep instead of turning into a madman and like killing people and stuff. But let's actually answer this question. After doing a lot of research, doing a lot of different stories, looking through a bunch of different sources, is this true? Now there are a ton of people that truly believe that this happened and that recount this story and that spread this everywhere. So none of this actually has 100% proof of everything happening like the story says. Not saying that parts of the story are not true, these types of experiments didn't go on, but there are a few parts of this story and the recounting that don't make any sense. The writer in this main story contradicts himself a couple different ways, and there are a couple of things that are completely impossible. Like when they say that vital organs are ripped out, or like 6-hour surgeries where there is no anesthetic, like that is generally impossible for someone to stay alive in. Before this said experiment, nothing even close was able able to keep someone awake for 15 days. There was a couple that were able to keep people alive for a couple days at a time, but nothing this extreme. So the science out of nowhere seems a little far-fetched as well. The methamphetamines and the crazy like drugs that Americans and Britons were giving people, that would like get people to stay awake for like 36 hours, not 15 days. Very, very different. There's a couple things like this gas becoming so addictive and leading to cannibalism, becoming extremely unlikely. Not saying that couldn't happen, but that it's just those types of properties just don't really make sense. Moral of the story, if this happened, it did not happen the way that it was depicted in the story. However, there are a lot of people that believe these types of experiments went on, things like this did happen, and a lot of people believe the story genuinely did happen. So if you have any other information about this story, please leave it in the comment section below and let me know if you want me to review any other crazy experiments or things